Greetings from Banias, Caesarea Philippi, the land of the Jordan. I am Majd Barham. We're taking you on a virtual tour of the site where Simon Peter confessed that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Banias is nestled amid three valleys on a terrace in the angle of Mt Hermon, which is right above us. It is almost shut out from view by cliffs and woods. Everywhere there is a wild medley of cascades, mulberry trees, fig trees, pomegranates, bubbling fountains, reeds and ruins, and the mingled music of birds and waters. Right here burst a river. These are the upper sources of the River Jordan, together with that of the River Dan and Hasbani. Remember, Banias only contributes 25% of the Jordan water, while Dan 50% and the Hasbani with another 25%. Banias has been a cultic center, first to the Canaanites, who worshipped in this area the god called Hermon or Baal Hermon, followed by the Greeks during the Hellenistic period, who believed that in that cavern we see at the foot of the rock is the dwelling place of the god called Pan, the god of nature, wilderness, shepherds, and of victory in battle, since it was said to instill panic among the enemy. From the year 200 till 198 BC, the Battle of Banias took place here between the Syrian Seleucid armies headed by King Antiochus III and the Ptolemaic armies of Egypt headed by Scopas. The battle was fought in these wooded areas, and the struggle was over the land of Israel. The victorious Antiochus attributed his triumph to the god of nature and victory, Pan. According to legend, Pan caused the enemy elephants to panic. Antiochus' victory, dedicating it to Pan, have increased the importance of the cultic center, which was located along the ancient Via Maris road from Damascus, east of where we are, southwest towards Mediterranean ports and Egypt. In 22 BC, Herod, returning from Damascus after paying homage to the visiting emperor Augustus Caesar, was inspired by the beauty of the region and built himself a palace upon that terrace, a temple dedicated to Augustus Caesar at the entrance of the cave where the Pantheon stood. Let's go and see some of what Herod built, and then we walk back where our Lord Jesus and his disciples as they came to this area around the year 27 AD. In 28 BC, Herod built a bridge over the river. Yes, the bridge right above us, to allow easier access for travelers along the Via Maris over the gushing waters of the Banias. Jesus and his disciples, traveling from Bethsaida at the northern shores of the Sea of Galilee, along the Hula Valley, crossing the Hasbani River, and then they must have walked on this bridge to get into the city. Believe it or not, this bridge was in use until 1973, when a concrete bridge was built right in front of me, replacing this one. Herod's Palace. This is what is called the opus reticulatum cut on the terraces, which might have been the palace terraces gardens, and on top of this natural terrace would have stood the palace. Look at those tiles. These are the ruins of the place where the Syrian governor lived 100 years ago. And you can see how in the modern times they use the same decoration as in the ancient times. Two 2,000 years ago, the cave opening was so small and narrow that Josephus Flavius describes it that a man, to get in, he had to crawl through. Josephus also mentions it to be the source of the river, and that the cave full of water was so deep that you could not reach the bottom of it. Today's large opening is due to an earthquake that hit the area 300 years ago, causing rock slides. Interesting that the Greeks worshipping Pan at this cave believed that this cave is the boundary between earth and the underworld, converging with the river Styx at the center of the underworld on a great marsh, which sometimes is also called the Styx. Herod the Great, following Josephus, built in front of the cave a temple dedicated to Augustus Caesar out of white marble and limestone that we can see its remains around us. Notice that we have niches here by me, and probably that Corinthian capital we see nearby was on top of pillars that formed the temple. Around 2 BC, Herod Philip, the son of Herod the Great, built himself a new capital, calling it Caesarea Philippi, which seems to have occupied a space of not less than 250 acres on the eastern side of the river. So when our Lord reached Caesarea Philippi, what he would have seen? Augustus' temple, the shrine of Pan at the cave, Herod's palace above us, the city right in front of us on the other side of the river. Jesus might have sat at the hill opposite to us with his disciples, watching this cosmopolitan city and the pagans worshiping their deities at the gates of hell or Hades. And one more important element is that they were mourning for the death of the god called Pan, which according to the historian Plutarch died around that period. Let's go to Gospel of Mathew and see what he tells us about the living, eternal God, Jesus. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter. On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Here Jesus points out the gates of Hades in different perspective. The Jews in those days believed that Abraham sits by the gates of hell, protecting his descendants from falling into it. Here we could see how the image of Peter evolved to be sitting at the gates of heaven. The confession of Peter that Jesus is the Son of the living God. Jesus stays for about 6 days in the region of Caesarea Philippi. It was in this area where he would tell his disciples about his death to come in Jerusalem. And after 6 days, he went up on a high mountain where he was transfigured. Could Mt Hermon be the Mount of Transfiguration? From 50 AD to mid-4th century AD, pagans proceeded to worship in this area, adding more temples that we can see the remains around us. niches to Pan and Echo, temple to Zeus, and temple of the goddess of vengeance Nemesis, temple to Pan and the dancing goats. But all this to change with the dawn of the Christian era, as in summer of 2020, archaeologists discovered ruins of a Byzantine church at the entrance of the cave, in addition to the ruins of the basilica at the entrance of the park, discovered in early 1990s. On this rock, I will build my church. Christians literally took these words, building a church on this rock, even though Christ's words have a deeper theological meaning. There is a lot more to Banias, which was a thriving town till 1967. When you come here, and if you have time, visit Herod Agrippa's II palace, which is a great example of Roman architecture from 80 AD. Walk along the river, seeing flour mills, reaching Banias waterfall, Israel's highest waterfall. It's a little piece of paradise on earth, but most important, you're walking where Jesus walked.